Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku, back with another fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Became the Vigilante Black Rabbit. Now before starting, please give this video a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. High on a rooftop of one of the many skyscrapers in his city stood the infamous Vigilante, Black Rabbit, a name that seemed odd considering his suit was green. He had evaded capture for months, facing off against pro-heroes like Eraserhead and Midnight, whom he found particularly challenging to escape. He smirked at the thought of Eraserhead trying to catch him. Without his scarf, he couldn't do any harm. Black Rabbit was quirkless. All Might frowned. No, you cannot become a hero without a quirk. It's simply too dangerous. He smiled at the small boy in front of him. I'm sorry, young man. Midoriya stopped looking up to All Might that day. He would prove him wrong. He would do everything in his power to show All Might he could be a hero. Midoriya woke up in a cold sweat. He brushed it off as just anxiety and started getting ready for school. He was currently enrolled in the General Studies course at UA, much to Bakugo's dismay. Midoriya rushed off to school, nearly running late. His two best friends, Hatsume and Shinso Hitoshi, met him at the front gate. Midoriya! Hatsume shouted. He quickly ran over to the two and started walking inside with them. Are you ready to behold the absolute radiance of my newest creations? She held up several pieces of support gear. Shinso shrugged. It isn't that impressive, Hatsume. It's just the hero course. Of course, they'd want you to make their gear. He leaned closer to Midoriya. She's not modest at all, you know. She wouldn't stop talking about it before you showed up. Well, she should be proud. It's the hero course. They'll probably use her gear for a long time. Midoriya smiled at Hatsume, who was still excitedly rambling about her inventions. Hatsume! She snapped out of her train of thought. Yeah? What is it, Midoriya? I broke some gear I was working on, and I don't quite remember how to fix it? His voice lowered to just above a whisper. She laughed. Of course. I'll help you to the best of my abilities. She looked up. Oh, it's my stop. See you two at lunch, she said before entering 1H. The two continued on until they reached Class 1C. They went in, sat down, and the day continued as normal, which was mostly boring and long. By the time lunch started, he felt like he might pass out. Midoriya got his lunch and found his two friends sitting at one of the few tables next to a window. He sat down next to Hatsume. So, Midoriya, Hatsume said between bites of her lunch. What support gear am I helping you fix, exactly? Well. He paused. You know that Vigilante, Black Rabbit? I tried to make a copy of his support gear because his is really cool, and I wanted to try my hand at something new, but it didn't go as planned. He laughed. Oh my gosh, you're alright, right? Yeah, don't worry about it, Hatsume. I'm fine really. Okay. She eyed him suspiciously. So, just to clarify, we're meeting at your house directly after school, correct? Yeah, that was the plan at least. Alright, I guess I'll see you then. She finished the last few bites of her food before clarifying, I have to go work on my creations for the hero course. With that, she left. The day ended before Midoriya knew it. It sped by almost as quickly as if he were actually enjoying himself. Hatsume met him at the front gate once again, with Shinso long gone as he had left while Midoriya was getting his books out of his locker. The duo walked to Midoriya's house, spending most of the walk in silence. It was unlike them to be quiet together, but there wasn't much to discuss. When they finally arrived and the awkward silence ended, Midoriya opened his door. Inko was watching the news but turned to see the two at the door. Izuku, how was school? Great like always. How was your day, Hatsume? She asked. It was fine, thank you for asking, Ms. Midoriya. Please, call me Inko. Izuku, you should have told me you were bringing Hatsume along today. I would have made Katsudon. A chorus of apologies echoed as the duo rushed up the stairs to Izuku's room. So, where is it? Give me a second. Let me put my bag down first. He did so, then went to his closet and pulled out a piece of fabric covered in technology, all torn apart. I thought you said it broke. Oh, it didn't break. Someone else did. He trailed off. She knew he was likely referring to Bakugo, as the two often found themselves under the same roof due to their mother's friendship. They went to work trying to repair the gear, although it proved difficult. Its circuitry had to be replaced entirely, and she ended up sewing the glove back together instead of replacing it, giving it a bit of extra flair. After an hour or two, it looked as good as new. "Thank you for helping me with this, Hatsume." Midoriya picked up the glove. "It almost looks like the real thing." He smiled at her. "Anytime." She looked over at his clock. 6 o'clock already? I've got to get home, but I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye, Midoriya." After they said their goodbyes and Hatsume left, he sighed. He took the box where he stored his gear out of his closet and laid it on his bed. Midoriya put the repaired glove back in the box with the rest of the set. She still had no idea what he was getting himself into. That night, Black Rabbit went out. He made his usual rounds around town, looking for trouble. He hopped across the rooftops, which seemed almost endless tonight. It was more therapeutic than he would like to admit, and unlike usual, no one was chasing him, hero or villain. He ended up sitting down on one of the few rooftops with a garden to catch his breath. "Nice view up here, huh?" Black Rabbit jumped into a defensive position only to see Eraserhead walking toward him. He internally cursed, as Eraserhead was one of the more difficult heroes to escape from. "Relax, I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to have a little chat." He stood next to Black Rabbit, taking in the view. "So, Black Rabbit, I have a proposition." He looked over at the Vigilante. "I want to know your identity and your quirk, or quirks. In exchange, I won't chase you down or report you. What do you say?" This has to be a trap, circled through his mind. He'd probably be ambushed, the heroes using Eraserhead as bait. That would be a new low, especially for all the heroes involved if he managed to escape again. Yet nothing seemed more out of place than that unsettling smile on Eraserhead's face. "That's extremely out of character, even for you, Eraser." He chuckled. "The Eraserhead I know wouldn't hesitate to detain me." He smiled in return. "You got me, Black Rabbit. I'm not Eraserhead. My name is Toga Himiko, and I can copy the appearance and voice of anyone whose blood I ingest." "Okay, not Eraser, what are you here to do then?" "I want to know who you are." "I told you who I am. It's only polite you do the same." "Sorry, not Eraser, I'm not telling you anything." "But Rabbit-chan, I told everyone I'd get to know something about you." She whined. The way she said it sounded so out of place in Eraserhead's voice. "That's too bad then. I'm not telling you anything." "Fine, Black Rabbit. By the way, why are you called Black Rabbit? Your suit is clearly green. Was that intentional, or did you not name yourself?" She asked, her questions flowing out almost endlessly. After a while, she transformed back into her normal self. To his surprise, she was actually just a small blonde girl he had seen once or twice before on the street. He gazed in astonishment. He had thought it was just a ploy to get him to turn himself in or something, but no, she was real. She noticed she wasn't Eraser anymore and froze. "Looks like I'll have to go now. See you later, Rabbitin." And with that, she disappeared. That was one of the stranger quirks he had ever encountered. For all he knew, if she was honest about her quirk, she could have tried to get a blood sample from him when his back was turned. He quickly checked but didn't seem to find anything. If he were to see her again, she could be a real threat to his identity. The rest of the night was uneventful. He stopped a convenience store robbery, but the rest of the night was spent patrolling. He was getting at most 5 hours of sleep on the nights he patrolled, which was not nearly enough, and it showed. Around 3 a.m., he headed back to his house. Tired as he was, falling asleep on the ground was not an option. When he reached his house, he entered through the window to avoid his mother if she happened to be awake, although he only left when he was certain she was asleep. He didn't even notice that Toga had been trailing him. He shut his window and started to take off his disguise. He pulled off his mask, revealing his green hair that seemed to perfectly match the color of his suit. That was all Toga really needed, so she left, making a note of the address. She'd come back later. When Midoriya finally put away all of his vigilante gear, he collapsed into bed. He passed out the moment he hit his mattress. "Izuku, wake up. You're going to be late." He groaned. He hadn't gotten nearly as much sleep as he needed, but he got up anyway. Midoriya got ready for school as quickly as he could, went downstairs, grabbed some toast to eat on the way, and ran to school. No one greeted him at the gate today. The bell for class had probably already rung. He trudged his way to class, rubbing his eyes. When Midoriya finally got there, he ignored the curious stares he received as he walked to his seat. He was never late. Lunch came faster than normal. Shinso said basically nothing to him all day, but that was typical. Midoriya, you were late this morning. I thought you were deathly ill or something. Hatsume yelled when she saw him at lunch. No, sorry, Hatsume. He laughed. I was up late last night and overslept. That is to be you, I guess. Shinso said to him for the first time that day. Hatsume gasped. Shinso, you aren't mute. Yeah. Just eat your food. The rest of the day went relatively uneventful. After lunch, their teacher announced that the UA Sports Festival would be occurring next week, regardless of the villain attack the hero course dealt with a couple of weeks ago. Last PRD was a free PRD, so all he heard was his classmates talking about the festival. Midoriya wasn't thrilled. But paranoia. Picture this, you're a known vigilante, wanted by many pro heroes who have the advantage of knowing your fighting style. If he was going to be forced to participate in the sports festival, he reasoned getting out first thing was his best bet. Shinso walked over to Midoriya, who was mumbling beyond comprehension. He could have sworn he heard something about the sports festival, so he butted in. What was that about the festival, Midoriya? Midoriya jumped out of his seat. Oh, it's just you, Shinso. Don't sneak up on me like that. He only laughed in response. Are you gonna tell me what you were mumbling about, or? And he was cut off by himself, Shinso's quirk forcing him to reveal. I was going to purposely fail the sports festival the first chance I get because he stopped himself as best he could. He didn't want Shinso to know about that. Ah, poor Midoriya, why are you going to fail, huh? He kept his mouth shut as best as he could. He was still under Shinso's control, and Shinso could make him remove his hand, but what fun would that be? The sounds that came from Midoriya's mouth were nothing but muffled whispers. Alright, if you want to be no fun, I guess I'll leave you alone. Shinso walked away, most likely to discuss this with Hatsume, but nonetheless Midoriya let out a quick sigh of relief. He had been this close to letting Shinso know about his work. Over the next 3 days, Midoriya was persistently bugged by Hatsume and Shinso about the sports festival. Midoriya, I don't know what's gotten into you, but it isn't like you to just decide to fail. What happened to all that determination? He didn't answer. In fact, he was ignoring most things. Midoriya. Shinso pulled him out of the road, and almost as soon as he did, a large truck roared by. Oh no, Midoriya looked around, then at the scared faces of his two friends. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Obviously. Hatsume yelled. The UA Sports Festival was only 2 days away, and although Izuku was in the General Studies course, he could feel the impact it had on the school's attitude as a whole. Everyone was anxious and enthusiastic at the same time, except for Izuku, who couldn't shake off the feeling of dread. His after-school job had become well known throughout Japan, and the thought of the festival potentially revealing his secret weighed heavily on him. The dilemma he faced was daunting: risk being discovered or let down his friends, who believed in him. While he knew they wouldn't truly lose faith in him, this was Izuku at his most anxious, imagining the worst-case scenarios. Lost in his thoughts, he didn't notice when Shinso approached him during study hall. Even when Shinso asked if he was okay and poked him gently, Izuku remained oblivious. Realizing that there was little he could do to pull Izuku out of his spiral, Shinso decided to step away and give him space. As he left the study hall and made his way to the commons, he unexpectedly found Hatsume standing in front of him. Oh hey, what's up? He greeted her. Izuku's out of it again, and I can't get a word out of him, Hatsume said, fiddling with her project. You know how he gets. Yeah, I get it. I just can't understand why he would pass this up, Shinso replied. Maybe he has some self-esteem issues and doesn't like being in the spotlight. I can see that happening, he suggested. So you think he wants to fail early so he can avoid being the center of attention? That seems a bit out of character for him, Hatsume remarked. Yeah, but it's the only explanation I can come up with. I'm not going to push him again, so don't bother asking, Shinso said, shaking his head. That's no fun, she pouted, but quickly perked up. Hey Shinso, do you want to see my new project? I think I'd better go, he replied, almost running away. Hatsume's enthusiasm could go on for hours, and once she started, it was hard to escape. This time, Hatsume didn't follow him. Instead, she sat down in one of the chairs and smiled thoughtfully. Oh, Izuku, what are you up to? She wondered aloud. Do you really think I haven't figured it out by now? Throughout the past week, Izuku hadn't been doing much in terms of vigilante work. Instead, his mind was filled with small, trivial matters. So, it was only natural that he couldn't sleep the night before the sports festival. Izuku decided to go on patrol, choosing to spend the time he couldn't waste lying in bed. He wasn't quite sure how he ended up on a train to Hosu, but he knew better than to wear his costume. If he had, the few heroes on the train wouldn't have cared. They were focused on much more important matters. As soon as the train came to a stop, he dashed into Hosu Station's bathroom and changed as quickly as he could. Izuku took off down the streets, weaving through burning buildings. The destruction was on a scale he had never witnessed before. It would be devastating for everyone living there, with no building left unscathed. Although he wished he could help, fire was not his forte, and the professionals had it under control. He decided to leave it to them just this once. Instead, he ran through the back streets, searching for people to help evacuate. It was clear that the fire wasn't the only threat, and civilians needed to stay out of harm's way. So far, he had been fortunate, finding only one person and helping him reach the train station. It wasn't much, but it was better than doing nothing. Izuku slowed his pace, fatigue catching up to him, but the screams he heard shortly after spurred him into action. Oh no, he thought, drawing on reserves of energy and sprinting toward the source of the screams. He quickly found an alleyway on the outskirts of the city, which he suspected was where the cries had originated. As he entered, regret washed over him. Oh, isn't it that troublesome little bunny? What are you doing here? Izuku didn't respond, instead taking in the scene before him. Two pro-heroes lay on the ground, both in dire condition, and he wasn't sure if they would survive, even if he could get them out. He felt lost, unsure of what to do. He turned to face the man who had spoken, trying to make out his features in the dim light. He could tell he was intimidating and he recognized him immediately. Hello, Stain, Izuku managed to say, his voice trembling. What a surprise. One of the heroes groaned, surprising him. He had thought they would both be unconscious by now, but apparently not. He knelt beside the hero, recognizing him as Ingenium. Blood covered his armor, seeping from cracks he hadn't known existed. The hero was in a terrible state, and Izuku felt a pang of despair. He remained silent, unsure of how to help, but Ingenium surprised him. You need to be careful, he warned, his voice shaky. His quirk can immobilize you. Leave you as good as dead. Thank you, Izuku replied, sincerity in his tone. I'll do everything I can to help. Turning back to Stain, who had been watching, Izuku felt a chill run down his spine. Are you two done now? Stain asked, pulling out his sword without waiting for an answer. Great. He seemed to give Izuku a few seconds to prepare, but then he charged at him with incredible speed, slamming him against the wall. Caught off guard, Izuku's instincts faltered. Stain pressed his sword against Izuku's neck, his glare freezing him in place. Such a strange little bunny, Stain mused. You're obviously not a villain. He studied Izuku again. Heroes refuse to see the good you do. You help others without gaining anything in return. Stain began to lower his sword. Black Rabbit, you're worthy of being a hero. Izuku froze, realizing that while Stain had spared him, he had still used his quirk. Blood trickled down his neck, but he was more upset that he could only watch as Stain fled. Ingenium managed to push himself up soon after Stain disappeared. Izuku was just starting to regain control of his body, but the other hero remained unconscious. Thank you, Ingenium said, surprising Izuku once more. Why, you're welcome, he replied, confused about what he was being thanked for. Then it hit him. He could barely move. Oh no, this isn't good. What happened? I'm not going to get out of here before the police arrest me, am I? Fear laced his voice. He looked at Ingenium, realization dawning. You're Black Rabbit. Oh no, they'll arrest you on the spot. Obviously, and you probably would too if you were in better shape. Don't say you wouldn't. There's a huge bounty on me, I know. Anyone with half a brain would realize that money could change their life. Ingenium looked at Midoriya, pity in his eyes. Oh, I can move. Midoriya exclaimed, starting to move his hands, then his legs, and finally standing up. Well then, I assume some heroes should be here soon, so I'll be off. He glanced back at the two heroes. I wish you both the best. Thank you. Ingenium smiled for the first time that night. With that, Izuku took off, leaving no trace of his presence except for a few blood splatters on the ground. He would need to wash his costume when he got home. It was covered in blood, and after everything he would have to sew it up as well. Meanwhile, Tensei and his sidekick were discovered in that alleyway with serious injuries not long after Izuku left. They were rushed into intensive care, where Tensei learned he would be paralyzed from the waist down. His days as a pro hero were over. Yet even after all that, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He submitted a report detailing the events of that night, including the confrontation between Black Rabbit and Stain, though it hardly felt like a fight. Little did anyone know, this single report would alter the course of the future entirely. The day started just like any other, but Izuku felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. There was no clear reason for his nerves, at least not yet. He got up, having only managed about 2 hours of sleep the night before. The thought of going back to bed and skipping school crossed his mind, just this once. Izuku, get up. It's time for school. Of course, his mother wouldn't let him off the hook, especially not on such an important day. I'm up, Mom. Don't worry. I'll be out in a few, he shouted, hoping she wouldn't come in to wake him. He still needed to clean the cut on his neck from the previous night. After getting home, he had wrapped it in bandages and decided to deal with it in the morning, but that turned out to be a mistake. The bandages had soaked through, and blood was starting to stain his shirt. Quickly, he removed the bloodied bandages and tossed them into the box with his costume. He didn't want his mother to see them, it would only worry her. Glancing at the clock, he saw it was 6:50 a.m. He could take a shower, clean his wounds, and avoid any questions from his mother. He grabbed his uniform and a couple of undershirts, just in case, and dashed into the bathroom. Fortunately, his mother didn't see him, allowing him to get in and out without raising any alarms. With the bandages off, he could tell the cut wasn't too deep, but it could have been much worse. It wasn't bleeding as heavily as it had been after his encounter with Stain, but he knew he should treat it now to avoid any complications. Around this time, Inko began to worry about her son. It wasn't like him to hide anything, especially not even the smallest injuries. Yet, here she was, cleaning up a small trail of blood leading from Izuku's room to the bathroom. The amount of blood was what concerned her the most. What would she say when he got out of the shower? Hi, I noticed a trail of blood and wanted to check if everything's all right? She considered saying that but opted for a more subtle approach instead. Izuku, I need to ask you something. Yeah? What is it, Mom? Are you all right? That froze Izuku in his tracks. She knew. He had been careless and made a mess running down the hallway. How could she not know? Ma, I'll be fine, don't worry about me, he replied, forcing a sad smile. He hated lying to her, but it seemed to be all he could do. I'll survive. Aizu, even I can tell you're not being completely honest. I'm not as oblivious as you think. I know. You're not, You don't have to explain. Just tell me where you're hurt. I'll take care of it, no questions asked. Reluctantly, he agreed to let her see. He unwrapped his neck, revealing a wound that had mostly clotted but still needed attention. I know I said no questions, but Izuku, she hesitated, dreading the thought. Did you do this to yourself? No. It's not like that. I swear. I didn't do it myself. She hoped he was telling the truth. He was lucky, it wasn't too serious. If it had been any deeper, it could have been much worse. She cleaned the wound as best as she could and bandaged it more securely than he had. "My thanks. I don't know what I would have done without you. Just tell me when you get injured like that. You don't know how worried I was." "I'm sorry. I really am," he said, feeling tears well up, something he tried to avoid. Inko pulled him into a comforting hug. "It's going to be all right, Izuku. Everything is going to be just fine." "It isn't though. It won't ever be," he whispered, hoping Inko wouldn't hear. "I know," she replied softly. "I know." The roar of the crowd above them was overwhelming, almost as loud as a jet engine. It was deafening, and people had to shout to communicate. Despite their efforts, it was nearly impossible to be heard over the throng. Eventually, Present Mike entered the room, the only teacher whose voice could cut through the noise. Even from below, the crowd would likely hear him. "Hey listeners, get ready. The first year's first event will be starting in 15 minutes. Make sure to be out on the field before then. The second and third years, please wait on the bleachers," he announced before leaving. It was a typical, uneventful appearance for him. After he departed, nearly 1,000 students were left with many unanswered questions, and the chatter grew louder. Midoriya, Shinso, and Hatsume lingered at the back of the room. It was too noisy for conversation, so they sat in silence. Izuku and Shinso attempted to listen to music, while Hatsume seemed lost in thought, likely brainstorming ideas for her latest inventions. As the other students began to filter out of the crowded room, Midoriya stood up and gestured for his friends to follow. When they finally made their way into the stadium, Midnight called the player representative, Katsuki Bakugo, to the stage. "I just want to say I'll win." With that single line, the first years erupted in disapproval. For the first time, Shinso was the first to speak. "He's pretty cocky, huh?" "Oh yeah, he's always been like that," Izuku replied, avoiding eye contact and staring at the ground. "So, you know him?" Shinso asked, intrigued. "Yeah, we used to be friends when we were little. Really little. Before he got his quirk and I didn't. After that, he wasn't really my friend anymore. I tried to deny it, but it never got any better." "Oh, do you want to talk about it?" Shinso's worried expression studied Izuku. "No, not really. I've tried to accept it, but talking about it just kind of stings, you know?" "Yeah, I understand," he said, though his expression remained unchanged. Suddenly, Hatsume rushed in, interrupting the tense atmosphere. "Where were you two? I swear, every time I take my eyes off of you, you go missing. We've been standing here the whole time. You're the only one who moved, May," Izuku replied. "Yeah, well still. It doesn't matter. Just try to stick with me, okay? As much as we love you, that's not happening," Shinso teased. Hatsume pouted, defeated. "Fine." The general chatter quieted as Midnight cracked her whip to get everyone's attention. "Listen up. The first event will be..." She paused for the electronic board behind her to stop. "Shuffling. The obstacle race. Each of you will race 4 kilometers outside of the stadium in an obstacle course. You may use your quirks as long as you stay within the course. Good luck." Everyone lined up at a narrow corridor leading outside the stadium. It was too cramped for all the students to go through at once, making it a tight squeeze during the initial moments of the race. "So, do you two have a plan?" Hatsume asked. "Well, I do, but I can't guarantee it'll work," Shinso replied, his tone serious. I don't have a plan. But I'm sure it'll work out," Midoriya said, flashing a smile at his friends. "Ah, cute. Of course it will. Why don't you come with me for a while? The support gear I have will surely help us both," she offered. "Oh, okay, but are you sure? I don't want to weigh you down. I might just be dead weight." "Of course. You're my friend, and I'd do anything for you. Besides, I know you aren't dead weight. You'll do better than you think." "Thanks, May, I owe you," he smiled again, earning a grin from Hatsume in return. "No, you don't. It's fine. But when we take off, make sure to hold on to me, okay?" The awkward look on Midoriya's face made her clarify. "When I start using my support gear, grab something my waist, my leg, my arm, anything. That way, if we happen to be flung or go faster than intended, you won't get hurt as badly." "Oh, Okay. He was about to say more when a horn blew, signaling the start of the race. Most students surged forward, pushing through the crowded tunnel, while a few held back, risking a slower start. Midoriya and Hatsume chose the latter, preferring to wait rather than be squished. Shinso, however, took advantage of the situation, using his quirk to navigate through the crowd, much like a boat sailing through a sea of people. And they were off, set to encounter their first obstacle any moment now. Suddenly, Midoriya exclaimed, "Robots! There are giant robots ahead. Hatsume, turn around." "Oh, come on, Midoriya. Don't tell me you're scared of some metal machines." "Yes, metal machines that are 1,000 feet tall. And it really doesn't help that we're gaining speed." "Yeah, but where's your sense of adventure?" "At home. Where I should have stayed." Hatsume frowned at her friend. "I didn't take you for a coward, Midoriya." "I'm not a coward. I just don't want to be crushed." "I mean, that's understandable, but we're doing the sports festival. We can't quit now." The two were quickly accelerating, thanks to one of Hatsume's mobility inventions. However, since they started late, they were far from catching up. Shinso was nowhere to be seen, likely ahead of them. Remnants of ice shards littered the ground, and the robots on the horizon were beginning to topple. Figures were pretty late to the party. "They're having all the fun," Hatsume complained. "I'm not complaining, at least there's less to worry about," Midoriya replied. "Speaking of things to worry about, do you think that ice wall that just appeared will be a challenge to get over?" "What?" Just as she said it, an ice wall loomed ahead of them. It had frozen two of the robots, which was likely the intention. Slowing down everyone behind it seemed to be an added bonus. "Oh, that," Midoriya said, surprisingly calm. Then Hatsume noticed his expression pure excitement, like a child at a theme park. "You're having fun, aren't you?" she smirked. I guess so." "Admit it. It's thrilling." Midoriya smiled, knowing Hatsume could read him easily. "Fine, but just a little bit," he admitted sheepishly. "Doesn't it just make you envy those heroes who get to do this all the time?" Hatsume asked. Midoriya didn't answer, opting for silence instead. He looked out at the field speeding past them, where many students were trapped in ice. The robots were frozen to the ground, and the ice wall was beginning to melt. However, there was a small gap beside the wall where they could squeeze through. "Hatsume, over there." Midoriya pointed toward the gap on the far side of the field. "Yeah, I see it," she responded, changing direction to head toward it. As they navigated through, Midoriya estimated that around 100 students were still struggling to pass the first obstacle, allowing Hatsume and him to easily climb into the top flat land surrounded them on all sides, except where the ice wall stood. A good number of the remaining students were running through this area, but thanks to Hatsume's inventions, they were able to fly past them, landing them in the top that was until they reached the gorge about 100 feet across, with narrow rock stools placed sporadically, towering over the bottom. Thin cables connected the rocks, which could assist with mobility but would slow them down significantly. The two came to a complete stop as Hatsume needed to adjust some of her support gear. Quickly, she pulled out a grappling hook and adjusted her hover boots. "Midoriya, come on," she said, pulling him onto her back and jumping off the edge of the gorge. Midoriya, understandably, let out a startled yell. "Falling off a cliff against your will tends to do that." Hatsume let him panic for a few seconds, just to tease him, then shot her grappling hook into the side of a rock and started swinging from rock to rock, Midoriya holding on tightly. Sure, he was a vigilante, but that didn't mean he was faking his reaction. Midoriya was genuinely terrified of falling, especially because without Hatsume, he would be powerless. He wouldn't have even come if it weren't for her and Shinso. As he braced himself for what he thought might be his last moments, Hatsume skillfully took control of their descent. Hatsume, on the other hand, knew she had Midoriya right where she wanted him. The biggest difference between her and Shinso was that while both knew Midoriya would do anything for them, she could use that to her advantage, if necessary. But that would only be a last resort. In truth, she valued their friendship too much to risk it. They had been nearly inseparable since they met, and Midoriya was one of the few who showed genuine interest in her inventions. All of this raced through her mind as she focused on not letting them fall. Eventually they made it across. Although Hatsume played a few tricks, she got them both across unscathed and faster than most of the other participants. Midoriya decided to take a moment to sit and calm himself. Midoriya, what are you doing? We should get going. Hatsume urged. Sitting, what does it look like? He replied. Why though? We're so close. Oh, I don't know, maybe because I thought you were going to let me think we'd be dead, 3 times? Oh, don't be such a party pooper. It was all in good fun. I thought I was going to splat, definitely not fun for me. Midoriya gestured toward the gorge. He might need to see a therapist to go near any canyon again. Hatsume frowned, then picked up Midoriya with surprising strength. It only took her a moment to get him back on the road toward victory. The only thing between Hatsume and Midoriya and the finish line was a narrow dirt patch. It was thin, at most 50 feet across, but at least 300 feet long. It didn't take much looking around to figure out what was going on. It was a literal minefield. Pink dust floated around them, and against Midoriya's better judgment, Hatsume decided it would be safer and faster to go in on foot. I really think. Trust me, Midoriya. It'll be faster. Midoriya sighed. But while we're walking, I would like to know why we can't just fly over it. All right. So? Midoriya asked, trying to scout the minefield. Well, they are just hover boots. They hover. They can't do that by themselves, so they shoot jets of air at the ground. It's hard to explain, but if we went over here with those, we'd be in trouble. Midoriya's expression was a mix of silent terror and intrigue, so the two navigated the minefield in silence. Midoriya mostly followed Hatsume's lead since she decided she would be the one leading. He didn't mind, hoping that she'd be able to spot the mines easier with her quirk, even though it didn't work like that. Pink explosions went off left and right of them, but the two hadn't encountered any mines yet. There wasn't much talking during the entire ordeal, as Hatsume was focused on plotting their path and holding on to her inventions to keep them from falling, while Midoriya wasn't one to start conversations. As they continued in silence, Midoriya followed Hatsume but also analyzed the other students navigating the minefield. Hatsume, look at Shinso, he said, trying not to laugh. When Hatsume looked up, she saw Shinso riding on the shoulders of some students who were taking the hits from the mines. He was just sitting there, relaxed. She chuckled. Classic. Hope they get that on camera. Shinso looks like a living meme, she said. But seriously, we should move faster if we want to finish and get to the second round. Yeah, probably, he agreed. They were already more than halfway through, and the two were gaining speed. Hatsume used her quirk to see the mines further away, allowing them to move faster. Midoriya ran after her, managing to avoid stepping on any mines. Here comes the first students. It's a tie for first place, the announcer, Present Mike, yelled. Hatsume, do you think we can go any faster? Probably, but we could step on a mine or something. Well, let's go for it. Midoriya sprinted past Hatsume, with her right behind him. Midoriya, slow down. You're going to. She was cut off as Midoriya stepped on a mine. He was propelled forward, while Hatsume stumbled back. That's exactly what I was going to say. She quickly got up and ran over to Midoriya. Are you okay? I'm fine, just need to get back up and moving, he replied. Hatsume helped him up, but he winced. I reopened the wound. Midoriya, calm down. Hatsume looked at him, concerned. Getting all worked up isn't going to help. Just take a breath, and we'll finish and get your wound bandaged. Blood was seeping through his bandages, which drew concerned looks from passing students. No one stopped the. Midoriya focused on not moving his neck. I guess we'll just have to finish faster now, huh? He said, smirking at Hatsume. Yeah, I guess so. Hatsume found it almost unsettling how quickly he shifted from shaken to determined. He turned back to her. Are you coming or what? Oh yeah. Sorry. The two started running again, having lost almost 2 minutes. Here comes the 20th student, only 22 more spots to pass into the second round. Present Mike shouted. Come on. We don't have much time. I can tell. The two were almost there, with less than 10 feet of minefield between them and the final stretch. They picked up speed, easily passing most of the students, as they had conserved their energy throughout the race. That's 30. 12 more spots. Come on, Hatsume. Faster. I'm trying. Not everyone can run as fast as you. With only 50 feet between them and the finish line, Midoriya sprinted ahead, while Hatsume started to fall behind. It took only 10 seconds to reach the finish line, with Hatsume right behind him. We're done, he yelled. Finally. And we made it to the second round. Yeah. I'm going to see if Shinso's around. All right, she said, then remembered. We know. You have to get that and he's gone. Great. When Midoriya found Shinso, he was apologizing to the students he'd been writing. Shinso. There you are. Oh, hey Midoriya. He turned to the students again. Yeah, but I'm sorry about that. He then turned back to Midoriya. So where's Hatsume? He noticed Midoriya's bandages were soaked with blood. Midoriya, isn't that the whole reason you were with Hatsume? Yes, but I'm fine. I swear. Midoriya, you really need that healed. I heard Recovery Girl was healing people somewhere around here. I'll help you find her. I said I'm fine, Shinso. No, you're not. You're going to get that fixed, or I swear I'll make you. You wouldn't. I would. Now, come on. Let's get you fixed up. As it turned out, Recovery Girl wasn't far at all, stationed next to the gate where the finish line was. Midoriya didn't have to explain anything to her, and the next thing he knew, all that was left was a scar. He quickly thanked her and ran off to find Hatsume and Shinso, who were happily chatting. He smiled and ran up to his friends. Can I have your attention? Midnight stood in front of the 40-some students who had finished first. A few of them stopped talking, but the majority ignored her. She didn't seem to care, however, and continued, the next event will be, she paused for dramatic effect. The cavalry battle. No more than 4 to a team. Good luck to all. Midoriya, Shinso want to team up? Hatsume asked. Sure, Shinso replied, a bit unenthusiastically. I'd love to, Hatsume. What about a 4th teammate? Do you think we should have one? I suppose, but who? Doesn't everyone else already have a group? Besides, Midnight didn't say we had to be in groups of 4, just that 4 was the maximum. Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Let's just see who doesn't have a team yet. And there was exactly one student who didn't have a team. It was probably because he had scored the lowest among all the students, and no one wanted him. When they asked him if he wanted to join them, he was ecstatic. Thus, it would benefit you all greatly to have me on your team. It's settled then. Aoyama, welcome aboard. The 4 ended up grabbing 4th place, good enough to get them into the next round. Midoriya was finally giving it his all, and it was clear he was enjoying the festival. Hatsume couldn't wait to show off her machines and even shared some with another student from the hero course. Shinso had a headache, which was obvious, while everything else about him was pretty much hidden. Midoriya thought he would have made a pretty good vigilante. Aoyama was over the moon that he made it to the last round. He never even thought he'd get into the second round, let alone the third. Midnight was at the head of the stadium, announcing the next event. All Midoriya heard, though, were the words, solo, one-on-one, and battle. Oh no, he mumbled. What's wrong, dude? Hatsume asked. Nothing, everything's fine. You sure? Yeah. Don't worry about it. You say that a lot, Midoriya. She rolled her eyes. The first 8 battles were announced, and Midoriya sighed. It was just his luck. His first battle was against Shinso. Shinso didn't look too happy about it either. Let's do our best, Shinso. Yeah, he smiled. Let's do that. Chapter 1. First round. Izuku vs. Shinso. Hatsume vs. Aoyama. Shoto vs. Ida. Denki vs. Momo. Tetsu vs. Kirishima. Mina vs. Siro. Tokoyami vs. Uraraka. Ibra vs. Bakugo. Midoriya managed to arrive at school only 3 minutes late. His teacher looked at him oddly as he walked in. He was usually punctual, especially on a day with such a significant event. The teacher marked him tardy and began discussing the rules for the festival. I want all of you to at least try. It doesn't matter if you don't get past the first round. Have fun out there. Izuku remained quiet even as the chorus of Plus Ultra echoed through the halls. He had spent plenty of time thinking last night and decided to give his all for Shinso and Hatsume. His two friends, along with his mother, were the only reasons he was still at UA instead of somewhere else entirely. Alright everyone, go get your gym uniforms on, then meet up outside the stadium, the teacher shouted over the students, who were already rushing downstairs. Izuku, however, didn't feel the need to hurry, especially when he noticed Shinso hanging back to talk to him. He smiled and jogged over. Hey, Shinso. Hey, Midoriya, Shinso replied, his gaze drifting to Izuku's bandaged neck. You alright? Oh, yeah, that don't worry. I'm fine. Just a few scratches. On your neck? Yes. Shinso looked confused. What happened? It was an accident. Izuku hesitated, unsure of how to explain. And? Well, there may or may not have been a blade involved. It wasn't entirely a lie, but it was more than he had intended to share. Oh no. Are you okay? Concern was evident on Shinso's face, which was precisely why Izuku had hesitated to tell anyone. I told you I'm fine. No, actually. They were nearing the crowded locker rooms of the gym. I said I'm fine. Completely fine. I'm not going to die from just a scratch. Silence fell between them as they entered the gym and continued toward the stadium. On the way, Hatsume seemed to be looking for them. Izuku, Shinso, there you are. Hey, Hatsume. Hey, Hatsume, look who's gotten himself injured yet again, Shinso said, rolling his eyes, the concern from earlier fading. Oh, Izuku, what happened this time? Her expression mirrored Shinso's worry. Nothing really. It was an accident. I'm fine now. Really? Just take it easy when we're competing. We wouldn't want our precious Izuku to get hurt again, would we? She teased. I'm not sure how to respond to that, so I'm just going to stay quiet. A few chuckles arose from the others, but they quickly fell silent as they focused on the path ahead. They had arrived at the stadium. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena. Let's do our best, Shinso. Yeah, he smiled. Let's do that. First up, Midoriya and Shinso. The two stepped onto the battle stage, courtesy of Cementos. Battle start. Shinso grinned. Alright. Hey, Midoriya. A moment passed with no response. He sighed. You're just a quirkless nobody. You weren't ever my friend. Midoriya struggled to maintain his composure. Don't respond, he doesn't mean those things. He's just trying to win, he reminded himself. Come on, Midoriya. What are you waiting for? Someone to carry you to the next round like before? I'm not going to respond, he thought. He would never mean that. But if he's going to try to win, I might as well. Midoriya charged at him, leaping toward Shinso. Shinso flashed a small smile. After all, this was far from their first spar, and he knew what was coming. He dodged to the side as Midoriya landed where he had been just moments earlier. Midoriya quickly followed up with a roundhouse kick, sending Shinso to the ground. Ha! Midoriya, you've gotten stronger since the last time we fought. You really need to tell me what kind of training you do alone. It really works. He stood up. Alright, let's do this for real this time. Midoriya nodded, deciding to attack first. He threw a punch, blocked, a kick, dodged, and then another kick, which connected. Shinso fell again. It was doubtful he enjoyed being knocked onto the concrete, but he got up quickly to avoid another hit. Midoriya, you're holding back, right? The question caught him off guard. It didn't seem like a mere inquiry, it radiated sincerity and perhaps disappointment? Midoriya opened his mouth but quickly shut it again. While Midoriya was distracted by that question, Shinso seized the opportunity to get close and pin him to the ground. He smirked. Shinso, sorry in advance. Midoriya grabbed Shinso's arm and flipped him as best he could, even while still on the ground. Stop. Shinso Hitoshi is out of bounds. Midoriya Izuku wins. Present Mike shouted over the mic. Indeed, Shinso's foot was just barely out of bounds from the throw. Midoriya got up and hurried over to his friend. I am so sorry. Are you alright? We need to talk, Midoriya, he paused. Not here. Follow me. Okay. With that, the two walked down the stage. The two entered one of the many deserted rooms. And locked the door. Shinso? What's this about? Well, what? Midoriya. Tell me exactly what you're doing in your free time. You're not just sitting around. It wasn't a command. He wasn't using his quirk, like he probably should have. Shinso. Look, it's obvious. I talked to Hatsume earlier, but she didn't want to tell me anything. What are you two up to? We aren't doing anything. Sure you aren't. Well then, Midoriya, I'd love to know how you've become so much stronger all of a sudden. I know we haven't sparred since school started, but this is just crazy. There's no way you should be that strong. If you aren't going to tell me, fine. I'll get it from Hatsume. Shinso. Why are you acting like this? It's unlike you. Like what? Like an overprotective parent or something. I told you we weren't doing anything together. And then it hit him like a load of bricks. Wait, Shinso. Don't tell me you're jealous that I spend more time with her than you? What? Of course not. I'm just going to get to the bottom of this, I swear. I'll figure this out. And Shinso rushed out the door, leaving Midoriya alone once again. He found himself alone more and more often. Time skip teleport to supporting cast. Hatsume. Shinso gasped for breath. He'd run up 3 flights of stairs to find her. Oh dude, you did great in your battle. If it was anyone else, I'm sure you would have won. Thanks, but I need to ask you some questions. Oh okay. Speaking of, where's Midoriya? Downstairs. Alrighty. What did you want to talk about? Can we talk somewhere? Private? Preferably somewhere close. I'm sure there's somewhere nearby. There wasn't. They walked for almost 10 minutes, and luckily Hatsume's battle hadn't been called yet. When they finally found a room, Shinso closed and locked the door. Hatsume. Do you know how Midoriya got that strong? What? Like, we last fought 2 months ago, but now he's just so much stronger? He probably worked out. No. I've been doing that. I'm weak compared to him. I thought you put up a good fight. He was obviously holding back. Shinso, do you really think he's hiding something? Yes. And I know you know what it is. Really? It's fine. Do you know what he's hiding? Like any sort of clue at all? Well yes, but it's N-. Hatsume, please just tell me what you're hiding from me. Your quirk doesn't work that way, dummy. But because we're friends, I'll give you a hint. I expect you not to spill any of this. Alright, fine. Okay, well what does Midoriya have to do with rabbits? Does he just play with them? Demon Hatsume and her vague hints. Midoriya? Hatsume wandered down the halls, finding no one. Her match was going to be called any second. Hatsume, please report to the stage. She'd missed the call already. Of course she did. Oh no. Alright. She ran downstairs, unaware that Midoriya was only a few doors away. He overheard their conversation. They weren't as far from him as Shinso thought. It chilled him to his core. Hatsume knew? Since when? When did he let it slip? Hatsume. How long have you known? The battle between Hatsume and Aoyama was brief. She showcased her gadgets, let Aoyama use a few, then forfeited. She wanted some exposure, but that was it. Winning didn't matter to her. Aoyama was happy. He didn't think it was fair, but he'd take it. He'd move on to the next round, and that was all he wanted. He had already exceeded his expectations. Hatsume and Midoriya didn't see each other for the next week. Midoriya did his best to avoid her, and she had no idea why. Shinso, as a result, was also somewhat avoided, but at least he was still talked to. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The next set of battles will be Mina vs. Tokoyami, Bakugo vs. Kirishima, Todoroki vs. Momo, and Midoriya vs. Aoyama. Good luck everyone. Mina Ishido and Fumikage Tokoyami, please report to the arena. Their battles were short and one-sided, as was Midoriya's. Bakugo narrowly won against Kirishima, and Todoroki simply pushed Momo out of bounds with his ice. It was as entertaining to watch as it sounds. Hey, Vima. You did great against Aizu. Did I? I mean, of course I did. Thank you for noticing, Hatsume. Yeah. Did you see where Aizu went, though? I need to talk to him. No, sorry. After the battle, he just walked away. I see. Thanks anyways. Of course. Izuku Midoriya and Tokoyami Fumikage tie for third place, with Shoto Todoroki not far ahead, scoring second. But today, our winner here is Katsuki Bakugo. Midoriya couldn't bring himself to accept his medal. His world felt like it was crumbling around him. He had thought his two worlds were separate and would remain that way forever, but apparently not. He didn't want so many people staring at him, especially not Bakugo. He had stopped calling him Kaken after the whole All Might incident. Speaking of which, he was aware of All Might's secret. It was always awkward when he saw him in the halls. He hadn't considered it before, but perhaps he could use that knowledge to navigate some tricky situations later. This is not the time for battle strategy, Midoriya. He eventually received his medal from his homeroom teacher after claiming he was feeling unwell during the presentation. Shinso had been quite critical of Midoriya in the following days, no, weeks. There was literally nothing that connected Midoriya and rabbits? Thanks a lot, Hatsume. Hatsume, on the other hand, didn't reach out until a week later, and even then, it was just a text message. Midoriya, hey, Hatsume, I'm sorry about avoiding you. Hatsume, dude, don't worry about it. What's going on though? Midoriya, I'll tell you later, how about that? Hatsume, sure. See you at school then? And then there was no response. Nothing would have happened if he had just been more careful. He hadn't even gone out since the festival, but of course. He couldn't fix his past careless mistakes, could he? And this was all just because of one knock on the door. Izuku Midoriya, correct? Midoriya hadn't been expecting anyone today, much less a police officer. He almost slammed the door shut out of instinct but managed to stop himself. Yes, that's me. Would you like to come in? He asked the officer, his voice betraying his nervousness. My mother just made tea. That would be great, thank you, the officer replied, and Midoriya led him back to the kitchen. Izuku, who was at his mother, stopped when she saw the police officer. May I help you? Yes, I'm here to discuss your son, Ms. Midoriya. Inko was taken aback. My son? Izuku? Yes, if you'll allow me, I'd like to explain the situation. He looked at Inko and gave her a reassuring smile. I am Detective Tsukachi, and I've been working on a case with the Hosu police for over a month now. We found samples of what we believe to be Izuku's blood at the scene, and we'd like to question him. Both Inko and Izuku were practically frozen, but for drastically different reasons. Inko was recalling the time Izuku had that unexplained injury on his neck and wondering if he had been hurt that same night. Meanwhile, Izuku was in a panic, fearing they had discovered his secret. Don't worry, we aren't going to do anything rash. I could even do it now if you'd like. Inko nodded. Yes, please do. All right, he turned back to Izuku. Izuku, may I ask if you were in Hosu on April 23rd? Izuku nodded, afraid to speak. Inko sat in horror, fearing her worries were true. Can I ask what you were doing in Hosu? He took a deep breath and answered, I heard about everything happening there and wanted to see the heroes in action. I just happened to get caught in an alley. The detective's quirk, human lie detector, activated. He didn't say anything to Izuku about it, though, opting to continue questioning him. He had his suspicions but wouldn't bring them up in front of his mother. Did you happen to run into Stain? The hero killer? No. Another lie. Okay, thank you for your time. Izuku, I was wondering if I could ask you a few more questions later. I'm sorry to have interrupted your dinner. Sure, he said. Izuku shook the detective's hand and began to lead him back to the door. Once Inko was certain not to hear, the detective said, I know you were lying. Izuku, thoroughly panicked and shocked, didn't respond. I have my suspicions, but I can't act on them until I know the truth. It's not anything horrible, don't worry. Tsukachi would really regret saying this if he got it wrong. Just getting you a hero license. What? If he was shocked before, it didn't compare to now. I know, but if you want to keep this up, you'd better be able to do this legally. If you want, I won't even tell the pros your identity. You'll be able to continue, but this time, with the law on your side. Oh, hey, hold on. What are you saying? I know, Izuku. We're not idiots, unlike some like to think. We put 2 and 2 together. The blood samples, the reports, your fighting style both in and out of UA. So, you're saying you've known for how long? How many people know? So, he doesn't deny it. That's a relief. I thought I'd made a mistake for a second there. It's been a little less than a month, and just the 5 of us in the detective department. We'll keep your secret safe, promise? And why should I trust you? Really, you have no choice, but I would like to gain your trust voluntarily. It makes things much easier. Midoriya released a pent-up breath and looked back at his mother. But on one condition. Yes. In addition to the conditions you've already set, I would like my mother to know nothing of this. If she finds out, I want to tell her myself. You've got yourself a deal there, Mr. Midoriya. Whenever you finish eating, come down to the station and ask for me. I'll be there. Then we can finish this conversation. Midoriya nodded and then shut the door in his face. Only then did he process what he had just agreed to. Oh no. I knew I should have just stayed home that night, but no. I had to play hero. Now the police know who I am. Aizu? Are you okay over there? His mother walked towards the door to find Izuku sitting in front of it. I thought I heard yelling. Yeah, Mom, I'm fine, he managed to choke out before trying to get up. If something's going on, you know I'm always here to help you. No matter what. You know that, Aizu. Just tell me what I can do. Thanks, Mom, but I don't think there's much you can do, he said, his smile genuine yet tinged with sadness. The damage is done. Aizu. I'm going to my room, he said, looking at his mother one last time before running to her and wrapping her in a hug. Mom, thank you. Inko was startled by the sudden embrace but quickly returned the hug. I know how much I worry you, and I'm sure you're more worried than ever now. But he struggled to find the words, tears streaming down his face. Inko held him tighter, recognizing that he had been trying to be strong for so long. He deserved this moment of vulnerability. Izuku, you're my son. Of course I worry about you. Everyone does. I know there are things you can't share with me, and I understand. That doesn't change who you are. You're my sweet, wonderful son, and no matter what happens, I'll love you just the same. Stop, he laughed through his tears. You're going to embarrass me with all this sentimental talk. Inko laughed in return, appreciating the bonding moment. Not seeing her son every day made her cherish these interactions even more. Izuku lingered in his mother's arms for a while, finding comfort in her embrace. But he remembered he had promised to go to the station. Oh, Mom, actually, I forgot I agreed to see the detective after dinner, so I guess I'll go do that. Are you sure you don't want to eat first? She asked, a hint of disappointment in her voice. No, thanks. I think I've lost my appetite. He pulled away from the hug. I should go. All right, Aizu, she said, managing a sad smile. With that, Izuku walked out the door. Walking to the station was the most stressful part of his day so far. Few people were outside at this time, most likely enjoying dinner with their families, just like Midoriya should have been. Instead, he was consumed with self-doubt. Of course, he had been careless. It was obvious. It wasn't as obvious as he thought, but that was beside the point. He didn't live far from the police station, which, in hindsight, he should have been more cautious about. He continued to berate himself until he finally reached the station. As he stepped inside, a few curious glances from the receptionist met him, but it wasn't too overwhelming. Hi, I'd like to speak to Detective Tsukachi, he said, hoping he didn't sound too nervous. Okay, hold on, she replied, pressing a button. Tsukachi, there's a kid here to see you. She turned back to Midoriya. He'll be out in a moment. Please wait in the lobby. So he sat, waiting. In reality, it was only a minute or two, but it felt much longer, likely because he was in a police station's lobby, waiting to talk to a detective who knew his identity and could change everything for him. Perhaps that was an overstatement. Tsukachi emerged from the back, his eyes immediately landing on Midoriya. I didn't expect you to come so early. Please forgive me for the wait. If you'd follow me to my office, we can chat there. All right, he replied, eager to escape the main lobby where so many eyes were on him. They walked down the hall, and Tsukachi stopped in front of a door. Right in here, please. I need to gather my team, but it won't take long. I'll be right back. As Izuku entered the office, Tsukachi hurried down the hall. He hadn't informed the others that the kid had admitted anything yet, much less that he had arrived so soon. He rushed into a room where 3 other detectives were seated. He's here. Who? Asked the first detective. Who do you think? He admitted everything only 10 minutes ago. I didn't expect him to come so soon. Tsukachi replied. Oh wow, so we were right? The second detective asked. Yes. Are you not listening? Get the others. He's in my office right now, and we don't have much time. Yes, sir, the third detective said, rushing out to find the others. When they returned, the 6 detectives made their way to Tsukachi's office. Upon opening the door, they found Midoriya sitting there, focused on his phone. Tsukachi, are you sure this is him? I thought he'd be older, one detective remarked. Me. Midoriya looked up at the detectives. Yeah, I get that. That's what you're supposed to think. So, Tsukachi, what did you say to him to get him to cooperate with us? One detective asked. Probably something I'll regret later, Tsukachi replied. You seem to have a knack for that, another detective chuckled. Hey, why don't you all introduce yourselves while I start filling out the paperwork? Tsukachi suggested. All right, fine. I'm Detective Kotani. Over there, we have Detective Kobayashi, Detective Nakamura, Detective Akiyama, and Detective Satoyoshi. Say hi, everyone. A chorus of awkward greetings came from the group. Midoriya looked them over. The detectives seemed ordinary enough but appeared friendly. Hey, I'm Izuku Midoriya. You probably know that already, though, huh? He rubbed the back of his neck. We had that idea, Kotani said, turning to the other detectives. Let me do the talking, okay? The others nodded, and he turned back to Midoriya. Sorry, I'm just making sure they won't say something they'll regret. Why yeah, okay. Kotani, tone it down, will you? You're scaring the kid. Oh, come on, Tsukachi. He's a vigilante, he can't be scared of me. Kotani, I swear, if you don't listen, you're out of here. The only reason you're all here is that you helped me find him. I might just kick you all out now, Tsukachi said, not looking up from his desk. But Tsu, come on. I told you, you are not calling me that. Kotani and the other detectives looked almost pitiful as they walked out. Sorry about that, Midoriya. They can be difficult at times. It's fine. You didn't have to kick them out. I did. Either way, we're going to discuss some licensing matters, and I'm sure you don't want to talk about that in a crowded office. Midoriya nodded. I suppose. Okay, first things first, are you alright with your current name, or do you want to change it when you go pro? I guess I'm fine with it, he shrugged. We have to put a civilian name on the card, but it's courteous to have the option of a nickname. Therefore, what do you want to be called? Who would see the card anyway? Just the police. If pros try to capture you, go with it. They can't touch you, legally. You don't have to show the pros your license, but you would have to show the police. Well, then why not just use my real name? It's just an option if you'd want to hide your identity further, I suppose. That'd probably be best, I guess. I don't really have any nicknames. Could I choose something on the spot? I suppose. A moment passed before he said anything. Alright, well, how about just Midoriya? No first name listed. Is that allowed? Alright. That's fine. Also, Mr. Detective, can I ask why you seem to be hiding this all from the rest of the police? I was wondering why you hadn't asked that yet. Well, you see, I think what you're doing is great. Taking care of those small crimes that are usually overlooked. Someone has to do it, right? That sounds extremely suspicious. Oh, okay. What about those other vigilantes, like the crawler? They're great too. Although I don't approve of their methods, someone has to do it, right? Yeah, they're illegal heroes after all. walking that thin line between heroes and villains, right? Right? Although they often lean more towards the side of Vil, he stops, as if he just realized who he's talking to. Is something wrong? No. I just remembered I have something to do. I'll get your license mailed to you when it's ready. He stands. We'll talk later, won't we, Mr. Midoriya? He leaves the room with Midoriya still inside. As he walked back to his apartment, he couldn't stop thinking about what that detective said. He seemed extremely suspicious, and he regretted getting involved with him. But what else was he to do? That detective knew his identity and had decided to keep it from the rest of the police force, so he was, at least, making an effort to be trusted, right? Maybe he should try and convince his mom to let them move. He was home before he knew it, and after going inside and taking off his shoes, he collapsed on the couch. Inko was still in the kitchen and watched her son come in. Aizu, how was, and he collapsed. Aizu, are you okay? She ran over to him. I'm fine, I swear. Tired, I guess. Then let's get you to your bed. She smiled at him. She'll ask more questions after he's slept. I can do it myself, Mom. He sat up and pushed himself off the couch. I'll see you in the morning. Oh, all right. Good night, Aizu. Sweet dreams. He walked down the hallway and went inside his room, closing the door slowly behind him. Inko was really worried about Izuku. He just came back and was going to bed? He hadn't even eaten yet. What happened between that detective and Aizu? Izuku sat on his bed, thinking. His door was locked and he was just sitting there, waiting. He had taken down all his All Might merchandise long ago, something he's sure his mother was confused about. She probably thinks he's just going through a phase. He'll get his love of heroes back eventually. He stood up, the bed creaking from the sudden lack of weight. Walking over to his closet, he pulled out his costume. He wasn't going to go out tonight, that would prove risky. No, he decided he'd finally repair his suit. It had been through thick and thin with damage to boot. It hadn't been maintained the best, despite his best efforts. Maybe it was time for an upgrade. Hey, Midoriya. Hatsume yelled across the mall. Coming. Give me a sec. He was about to check out, which could probably take a couple more minutes, depending on how chatty the cashier was feeling. His phone buzzed, probably Hatsume after being told to wait. He pulled it out of his pocket, and to no one's surprise, it was in fact Hatsume. What wasn't expected was the video she sent. He opened it and clicked play. Well, since you're so busy, I figured I'd just show you now, the video said. She panned up from the floor to the wall, where there was a police sketch of what Black Rabbit might look like as a normal civilian based on witness accounts. He kind of looks like you, right? Albeit, older by a long shot, but I'm not crazy for thinking that, yeah? She laughs. The video ends. She wasn't wrong. It looked remarkably like him, which was very, very bad. He quickly texted back. No, you're not crazy. Where are you? Front desk. Wow, helpful. Be right there. All right. See ya. He paid, then literally ran to Hatsume. Sure enough, there she was, right next to the poster. He took one look at it, then turned to Hatsume. Do you mind if we leave, say now? Why? Well, I'm finished shopping and I guess I just don't like how that poster looks so much like me. All right. Where should we go? We can go to my house. Okay, fine by me. Hatsume had a large house, to say the least. Midoriya got lost more than once on the way to her room. And in what was presumably the biggest twist of the day, her room was entirely gadget-free. Hey, Midoriya. We need to talk, you know? She looked at him. Can you shut the door after you come in? Yeah, all right. He pushed the door shut and sat in one of the chairs she had scattered around her room. Well, what is it? Midoriya. I'm not stupid, okay? I know you're one of the smartest people I know. No, not like that. You're not stupid either, right? You have at least an idea of where this conversation is going. Oh no. He didn't want to believe it, but here it was. Yeah. He nodded. I suppose. If we're thinking about the same thing then. So, you're not going to come out and say it? I'll do it then. You're that vigilante the media can't seem to get over, right? He nodded. How long have you known? Almost a month? After that whole, hey Hatsume. Can you fix my broken gadgets thing? I pieced it together pretty easily after that. Well, if you know, does that mean Shinso does as well? Not to talk bad about him, but I think he's a little too preoccupied to notice. Maybe. Or maybe he does know. Maybe he's just hiding it. No one can tell what he's thinking. Whoa, calm down. You're hyperventilating. I don't get how you do this type of stuff. You're such a mess. You didn't tell anyone, right? No, I kept it to myself. Oh no, what if the teachers know? What if Principal Niza knows? I'd be more than just expelled. I'd be in serious trouble. Midoriya. Get a grip. You're fine. No one knows, and if they suspect something, they don't have any proof. But what if they do? Midoriya. I know, but what if? What if nothing? Everything will be fine. You have nothing to worry about. But nothing. How many times will I have to tell you? You will be fine. She sounded a lot like Inko, but much more assertive than his mother could ever be. The yelling isn't helping, you know. That made her stop. Midoriya, I need a second to calm down. He looked at Hatsume. I think I'd better go. He got up and walked over to the door, leaving Hatsume alone, wondering what in the world just happened. It was certainly one of the more unusual encounters she'd had with him. He went from that nervous teen she'd always known to someone serious and intense, and back to a nervous wreck at the thought that even Shinso might know. Very odd. Midoriya ran out of Hatsume's house. No, it was more like a mansion. He didn't know where he was going but eventually found a window close enough to the ground that he felt comfortable jumping out of to escape. After that, he just ran and ran and ran until he found himself by a familiar river in a familiar forest, trying desperately to calm himself. It's all just a matter of time now. Deku? What are you doing here? Bakugo's voice dripped with challenge. Izuku turned around to see him standing there, having approached silently. Nothing, Kaken. I was just enjoying the river. Bakugo smirked. Enjoying the river? Really? What are you doing here then? None of your business, shitty Deku. Midoriya chuckled. You really never change, Kaken. You wanna go? He activated his quirk. If you want to fight, I'll fight. I'm not inviting you to fight. I'm inviting you to take a beating. He lunged at Izuku, who barely dodged the explosion and fell into the river. Oh great, now I'm soaked. He frowned. How dare you dodge? But Kaken, it's supposed to be fun for both of us. No, it isn't. It's supposed to be fun for me. You're supposed to be begging for mercy. Wow, thanks Kaken. He knew he couldn't dodge all day, especially against Bakugo. He was getting tired, and Bakugo's blast range was way too close for comfort. With all the noise, it didn't take long for people to take notice, and a crowd started to form. Isn't that Bakugo? What's he doing attacking that kid? Wait, isn't that Midoriya from the sports festival? I heard he was quirkless. Doesn't mean he isn't strong, but still, I don't understand why someone would attack him. Isn't using your quirk in public illegal? Especially if you're not a hero? Yeah, technically. Don't see why he'd knowingly break the law though. Maybe they have beef with each other or something. Whatever, I'm calling the police. Distracted by the crowd, Bakugo took advantage and sneaked up on him, sending an explosion right into his side. He didn't feel anything at first, which was the first warning sign that went off in his head. He glanced at Bakugo, then the crowd, and closed his eyes as the pain began to set in. He could only think of Bakugo's horrified face as everything faded away. Bakugo was the first to find out. She didn't want to believe it. Katsuki was a nice boy, right? She rushed to the hospital, desperate to see her son. The receptionist gave her a worried glance when she asked where he was. He was just in surgery, ma'am. I don't think it's a good idea. A doctor walked down the hall, spotting Inko. Excuse me, you must be Ms. Midoriya? Yes, that's me. What happened to my son? She looked like she was about to cry. We're not exactly sure, but we'll find out soon enough. We're just waiting for Midoriya to wake up so we can get his testimony. So that means he's okay? He's alive, yes. Would you come with me? Of course. She let herself be led down the hall. He should be awake soon. When he wakes up, I'll come and get you. He smiled at her, though it was laced with sadness. He opened the door, then immediately walked back out. What timing? He's awake, Ms. Midoriya. Sure enough, there he was, lying in the bed. He perked up when he saw Inko. Mom. I'm here, Aizu. She rushed to him, but hesitated when she saw the bandages wrapped around his torso. Aizu. What happened? Mom, I messed up. His eyes started watering. I really did it this time, huh? He smiled, even as tears streamed down his face. Fate. It's okay, Aizu. Just tell me what happened, okay? Okay. He sniffed. I was at Hatsume's, but I left and went to the river because I was stressed. Kaken was there and he. It's okay, Aizu. Calm down. He was there and wanted to start a fight. I tried to get out of it, but I guess I didn't. Oh, Aizu, you did the best you could, I'm sure. She smiled, sadly, but it was a smile nonetheless. What was the extent of his injuries? She turned to the doctor who was watching from the door. Well, he picked up a clipboard from the nearby table. He had significant damage to the left side of his torso. In total, he had 2 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and some skin damage, but the rest was easily fixed in surgery. Ah, thank you. He nodded and walked out, leaving Inko and Izuku alone. It looked like Izuku was exhausted. Aizu, you should sleep. I don't. Aizu. All right, Mom. He sighed and closed his eyes. Inko sighed. She stepped out of the room and called Mitsuki. Hello. Mitsuki? Did you hear? Hear what? What happened? Katsuki did. He went overboard. Inko, you're leaving me in the dark. What did he do? He hurt Aizu, Mitsuki. Worse than just a black eye, like he's done before. Well, where's Katsuki? As far as I've heard, he's at the police station. Aizu's in the hospital. Wait, hold on. Katsuki put Izuku in the hospital? Yes, unfortunately. Look, I don't expect Katsuki to get away with this, but I just make sure he doesn't go near my Izuku again. Please. Of course, Inko. I just can't believe it. They used to be such good friends. I guess it just wasn't meant to be, huh? I should go. I'll talk to you later. Bye, Inko. Tell Izuku get well soon from me. I will. Bye, Mitsuki. She hung up. Mitsuki was probably going to confront Katsuki, but she really didn't care. He'd gone too far this time. Mom. She jumped and peered back into the room. Yes. You didn't have to do that. He looked up at her. I can handle Katsuki. Most of the time. Aizu. He's hurt you. He's been hurting you, and it's my fault for not doing anything to stop him. This was the final straw. Just sleep, Aizu. You don't need to worry about anything right now. I'll fix this, I swear. Mom. Inko looked away from her phone to see her Aizu awake again. Good morning. She smiled. The doctors said you'll be fine. Okay. There was silence, then Inko decided to speak up. Hey, Aizu. When were you going to tell me? What? About Katsuki. When were you going to tell me it escalated this much? Hopefully never. I didn't want you to find out and be worried. As your mother, it is my job to be worried about you, Aizu. There's only so much I can do when you don't tell me things. I called the school and told them to keep Katsuki away from you. Last Mitsuki told me they're thinking about expelling him. They can't do that. Aizu, you have to understand what he did to you, from when it started up until now, is incriminating evidence. Look, the schools do know about all the bullying. It's on Katsuki's permanent record. He went too far and everyone agrees. Mom, it's his dream. I can't get in the way of that. You're too forgiving for your own good. Inko looked up at her son. If something like this happens again, make sure to tell me. Please, for my sake, don't let anything get to this point again. Again, silence. He didn't answer. Is there anything else I should know about? A pause, but he eventually spoke. Probably. Do you want to tell me? No. He looked away from his mother. All right. She knew he'd tell her later. He didn't return to UA for a full month. Shinso checked in on him every couple of days, but with finals coming up, it was getting harder for him to make time. Hatsume avoided him. The public noticed the missing vigilante, and the few conspiracy theorists out there connected his disappearance to Midoriya himself. The dates just lined up, but most people scoffed at this, saying it had to just be a coincidence. Black Rabbit would have to have been much older. Izuku never really talked to Katsuki again. When Mitsuki came over, she'd make sure he stayed at home or was out with his friends. The last thing she needed to deal with was a serious charge against her son. Detective Tsukachi got a hold of Midoriya's phone number and texted him updates on how far along his license was. Now, it just needed to be approved by the Hero Association, but he'd try to pull a few strings so that it wouldn't be too much to ask from them. Midoriya had to rest. He was told to stay in a wheelchair for 6 weeks and that he wasn't allowed to do any sort of physical activity until his new physical therapist said he could. He didn't like it. A year after the incident, he and Hatsume had drifted apart. They exchanged brief waves in the hallways, but their conversations had faded, and they no longer shared lunch together. Shinso remained close to Midoriya, but it saddened him to see Hatsume distance herself from both of them. After everything that had happened, Midoriya finally confided in his mother about his late-night escapades. She was taken aback. She had assumed he was merely sneaking out to attend parties, not that he was trying to enact his own version of justice. As he broke down in tears, she embraced him tightly. Couldn't express his apologies enough, whispering them until he finally drifted off to sleep in her arms. When Shinso learned of this, he reached out to Hatsume to see if she was aware. She confirmed that she was. That was the last time they heard from her. Shinso and Midoriya eventually achieved their dreams of becoming heroes. Midoriya adopted the hero name Kuro, while Shinso chose to go by Mockingbird. Together, they established their own agency, remaining best friends throughout their journey. Midoriya made it a point to share everything with Shinso from that moment on. The public never connected Midoriya to his past as Black Rabbit. They adored the dynamic duo of Kuro and Mockingbird, oblivious to the truth behind their identities. Midoriya didn't dwell on it. If he ever had concerns, he could always reach out to Tsukachi, who had become a friend after everything settled down. Whenever Kuro encountered a vigilante in the city, he would engage with them, offering support and encouragement. He let them know that if they ever needed help, he would be there for them. After all, he understood what it was like to walk that path. And that was that. And we're in the semi-finals. The last few rounds await. Next up is Tokoyami vs Bakugo and Midoriya vs Todoroki. How exciting! A quirkless student made it this far. But how much longer can he hold out? Let us see. Geez, whoever's announcing is really annoying. Midoriya mutters to himself. Especially just commentating on me? Why? And now, the finale you've all been waiting for. Todoroki vs Bakugo. The rest of the announcement faded into the background for Midoriya. He felt defeated. He had already lost. He just wanted to retreat to his quiet spot at the bottom of the stairs. Midoriya. There you are. Hatsume's voice echoed through the empty hallway. Oh no, I am not being confronted about this now. So he ran. That was all he could do. He dashed up the stairs, moving as quickly as possible. Hatsume couldn't keep up, and that was the last she saw of him for at least the next 2 weeks. Once he found himself locked in the top floor's bathroom, he tried to calm down. But it didn't really work. His mind kept racing back to his battles. Did he show off too much? Why did he even agree to participate in the first place? They would know it was him. Hatsume already did, and she didn't even have half of what the authorities probably knew. Or maybe he was just overthinking it all. Perhaps no one actually knew, and Hatsume was just asking about the gloves he had asked her to fix a couple of weeks ago. He really hoped it was the latter.